Everyone, VCalla here, and welcome to Let's Discuss Politics. Today, I'm glad to be joined by the Ottawa City Councillor for Ward 2, Orléans West-Innes, Laura Dudas. Thanks, Laura, for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's so great to have you here, and as usual, a note to the audience to make sure you're staying updated with me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at PC Productions 25, staying updated with my website, VCalla.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, and get notifications here on YouTube. So without further ado, let's get this interview started. So our first segment is called Laura's Story, where we'll talk a bit about who Laura is and her political history. So first off, can you tell me a bit about yourself, your story, and how you got your start in politics?
Absolutely. Well, my start in politics actually stems from volunteerism. I had moved into Blackburn Hamlet. I'm raising my family here, and I became involved in the community association. I started becoming involved in parent councils and girl guides, and it just kind of grew from there. That I noticed in a community that if you give back, that if you're involved, that it makes it a better place for not only you and your family, but for everyone. So I really wanted to continue to do that. And through that, I started volunteering with the business community. I started being involved in different entities. And every project that I worked on, it just made a difference for everyone. And that made me feel very good about what I was doing and how I was contributing. So I don't know that I necessarily started my path to politics with the intention of ending up in politics, but more so just about giving back to the community and really seeing that to be able to make decisions that had an impact, I couldn't just always just be volunteering. I had to also have a seat at the table to make those decisions.
So let's talk about that now. Back when you first ran, in 2018, were elected then and reelected in 2022. So why did you decide to run for councillor back in 2018? And what made you decide to run for municipal council and on the local level? Why? Why'd you do that?
It's a great question. And it goes back. So I was volunteering, I was very involved in the community. And I recognized that there was a lot of decisions that were being made. There was small decisions about, what to put in a park, but there was big decisions about our city that I wanted to be part of. I wanted to see our community's voice reflected in. And I recognized that the only way to do that was, as I mentioned, to have a seat at the table. So for me, municipal politics was an extension of that volunteerism. But it also, and I'm absolutely biased, I'll be straight up on this one, is that municipal politics is the most important level of politics. It has the most impact on everybody's daily life. And knowing that and recognizing that that's where my roots were trying to make an impact on myself and my neighbors' lives, municipal politics was really the only way to go for me.
Well, and that's right. I mean, I've had so many municipal candidates and politicians join me, and it always gets back to that, right? Like how municipal politics is such a big important part of our lives. Like when I had Jim Watson on last summer and then Catherine Kitts on, your colleague Catherine Kitts a couple weeks ago, we always talked about how whenever you walk down the road, that's a city service, the maintaining of sidewalks during the winter and turning on the lights and flushing the toilet and turning on the tap and all this sort of thing. Garbage collection is all city services, and it's an important part of our daily lives. So that really is important. So we're going to go on to the next segment, which is called Serving as an Elected Official, where we'll talk a bit about your experiences and achievements as an elected official. So first off, what has been your favorite part about serving your community as their counselor over the past 5 years or so?
The people, absolutely the people. It's working with individuals who have either maybe a problem, maybe there's a pothole that needs fixing, or the bus service needs to be improved in their particular community. Maybe they're having financial difficulties. We saw that a lot during the pandemic, where people were struggling with circumstances. And for me, it's trying to help them. It's either, even if I, as a municipal councillor, can't directly help them, I can connect them to the services that can, or just addressing their daily concerns, giving them information. Sometimes it's even just listening. And I think that connection with people is probably one of my favorite parts about my job, because I get to hear from folks, I get to hear their ideas, their vision for our city. And that's what really feeds my advocacy for our community at the city level and at the council level, is knowing that I get to touch their lives, but they're telling me how I can advocate most effectively for them.
So, and that's important. And now I wanted to ask you, what has been your favorite achievement over the past years that you've been a counselor?
I have many. I would say, we've had a big expansion of the Lower Kemp Arena and Blackburn Hamlet. We've seen, I've really advocated for enhanced snow clearing of multi-use pathways so people can move freely in the winter, and they make it more accessible. Uh, there's a lot of things I'm really proud of, but I think the most happy I've seen, the most successful thing that myself and my colleagues around the council table were able to do, was to provide stability. And I say that because we have gone through a very difficult past many years, 4 years plus, for our city. We were faced with the pandemic, as the global community was as well. We had the occupation of our downtown core. We had the major Rancho storm that devastated a lot of our wooded areas, and and some of our rural areas as well. We have been able to provide a level of financial stability by really keeping a line on taxes. We'd be able to provide supports for those in our community who are most in need, whether through resources or providing subsidies and trying to provide as many homes as possible. So I find that it's really that stability. If people are not upset about what is happening, if they're feeling comfortable in sharing their concerns and thoughts, but their lives are continuing to flow every day, and they can guarantee that their garbage is going to get picked up and their water is going to come out of the taps, the bus is going to come. Those are accomplishments for us as a city, because that's what's going to keep them moving through their daily lives.
So let's talk a bit now on this segment, which is called The World of Politics Around Us, where we'll talk about this world of politics that surrounds us. So first off, I want to ask, who is or who was another politician that inspires you as a counselor?
I would have to say, I absolutely admire and have utmost respect for Charlotte Whitten. She was a Canadian feminist. She was the mayor of Ottawa. She was the first woman mayor of a major city in Canada, and she served from I think it was 1951 to 1956, and then she came back again in 1960 and served to 1964. But she was a dynamic personality. She didn't always get along with everybody, but she certainly had this charisma, this determination, and she was never shy about advocating fully for the city of Ottawa and people that she represented. And I do think that, strength in politics, empathy in politics is absolutely necessary, particularly for women who are politicians. And I do look to women like Charlotte or Claudette Kane, who is also a former mayor of the city of Gloucester, who really kind of pioneered and led the way for us as women in politics.
And finally, now is the question I always like to end on, and it is, what do you think is an issue or some issues that need to be focused on more, that you'd like to focus on more over the next few years?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. Course services that the city provides. I mean, they're not particularly exciting to talk about, but being that we're the nation's capital here in Ottawa and we're the federal seat of politics, oftentimes, even at the municipal level, we get embroiled in conversations about global, national affairs. But at the end of the day, I go back to my comment that, residents of our city really count on us to make sure that potholes are being filled, snow is being cleared, that garbage pickup is happening, that the water is coming cleanly out of their taps. And those are just a couple of the things the city does. Providing affordable housing, making sure that people are getting support through community and social services. These are things that are so impactful on residents' daily lives. And I think that as a municipal council, we always have to go back to, what is our core services? How can we support the residents that elect us and require our support in their day-to-day lives?
And finally, before we go, I just wanted to ask you about your role as the chair of the Community Services Committee. What sort of work have you been doing on that committee, and what are you looking forward to do in the next little while as the chair of that committee?
I'm so proud to be the chair of this committee. We actually have one of the heaviest workloads in the city in terms of supporting some of our most vulnerable members of our community. We recently passed a budget that will dedicate funding towards improving operational supports for shelters and making sure that people who are unhoused are receiving transitional housing. We're working with different community groups that we partner closely with to make sure that food insecurity is being addressed. We're dealing with folks in terms of community safety and well-being plans, and really kind of tying in with addressing mental health issues. There are a lot of needs in our community, despite the fact that we are a federal government town and we have a high rate of employment and a high rate of education. We still have a large amount of people in need in our community, and we need to always recognize that we need to support those who need our help the most, and this committee is really dedicated to that.
And it's so important to help those that need the help. And in our city, there's a lot of people that need help, and reaching out and serving those people is just so important to do, and to be there for each other in this great city that we call home. So that is all for today. Thanks, Laura, so much for joining
It's what
me.
makes Ottawa great.
Well,
Thank you for having me.
Well, it was so great having you. And if you like this interview, make sure to go check out my other interview with Laura on YouTube for Top 10. If you're watching this on the day of the premiere, it's going to be coming out on Friday. So Let's Discuss Politics is a VCalla production. So until the next video, I'm Vincenzo Calla, signing out.